After the disaster that was Mortal Kombat Annihilation, a third Mortal Kombat movie began pre-production but was ultimately cancelled. A reboot for the series was planned for years, but the project was stuck in development hell. One person attached to this MK reboot for a long time, which eventually became Mortal Kombat 2021, was Kevin Tancharoen, who in 2010 made a short film as his proof of concept for his grittier, grounded take on Mortal Kombat. This short film wouldn't be made into a movie as originally planned, but instead a web series. Hello my fellow oddities, and welcome to The Legacy of Mortal Kombat Legacy. We're gonna go through this entire saga started by Kevin Tancharoen and find out what went well, what went wrong, and the impact this series has had since its release. So let's begin with Mortal Kombat Rebirth. This was that initial 2010 proof of concept for a Mortal Kombat movie. It's about 8 minutes long and features almost no sense of mysticism or fantastical elements MK is known for. But let's start from the beginning. So the film begins in Deacon City? What the hell is Deacon City? Deacon City is the fictional city in California that this short film takes place in. I know it's never been officially confirmed, but I'm pretty sure the Earth parts of MK that aren't in Asia are in Chicago, cause that's where NRS HQ is. But oh well, it doesn't really matter. We see the police department of Deacon City, where Captain Jax Briggs, you know Jax is a real name, right? You don't need to have some weird explanation for it like it's unrealistic. Jax here is played by Michael Jai White, one of the greatest castings in Mortal Kombat history. The dude is a beast, played Spawn, played Mike Tyson, he can fight, this is a W. But he goes into an interrogation room with a man in shadows, and starts reading off reports from his file. Okay, if you haven't seen this film, brace yourself. Reptile is a Harley Quinn ichthyosis baby, do not look up, who grew up to become a cannibalistic serial killer. And Baraka is a plastic surgeon who sharpened his teeth and put blades in his arms. I'm not joking. Yeah, basically for all the characters with powers, they were planning to craft these weird, logical explanations that are grounded in earthly reality, which I just don't know why you'd want to do with MK. That's like adapting a superhero and then just making them a regular dude. The super part is what makes them interesting. Hell, you could have at least had Baraka shave his head. Maybe then he'd look at least 1% like the Baraka we know. Thankfully, Johnny Cage is introduced and is pretty much completely accurate to what we know, and he's played by the face model for Chris in Resident Evil. So that's neat. Johnny was sent in as an undercover agent, I guess, and he finds Baraka. One thing I will give, not just Rebirth, but Legacy 2, is that the fighting is quite good. No excessive shaky cam or quick cuts, lots of creative shots and moves. The one issue is sometimes, like in this fight between Johnny and Baraka, it's just too damn dark to see much. The lighting in these sometimes looks like they turn the contrast up way too high. Anyways, Johnny and Baraka fight. Johnny tries to armbar Baraka. That's like the last dude you want to try that with. And Baraka kills Johnny Cage immediately. Cause that went so well the first time. Jax then reveals to the shadowy prisoner that there's a mob boss, not named Shang Tsung, but Shang Tsung. Why? Holding an underground tournament between the best fighters in the world, which includes random sadistic serial killers for some reason. We then learn the identity of this prisoner, Hanzo Hasashi, the top assassin of the Japanese gang, the Shirai Ryu. You know, it could be worse. And it is, because in order to convince Hanzo to help them infiltrate the tournament, Sonya appears and shows pictures of this monstrosity. This, believe it or not, is Sub-Zero. Hanzo thought he killed him, but it was actually his brother. This convinces Hanzo to join the tournament and win it for not the special forces, but just the regular police. Oh yeah, and he announces himself as Scorpion and reveals that he's blind. So he has white eyes, like in the games. Mortal Kombat Rebirth is terrible. I know there are people who are interested in this grounded take, but I don't want it. This isn't MK. This is a completely different concept that I can't even say is trying to wear the skin of Mortal Kombat, cause it's barely even associated. Thankfully, I think everyone involved kinda saw this, but instead of tossing Kevin Tancharoen to the side, he instead was allowed to work on Mortal Kombat Legacy, a 2011 web series on Machinima. Holy shit, that name takes me back. And this was much more accurate to the games. Initially, But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, and let's look at Mortal Kombat Legacy Season 1. This first season was the setup season, to show the origins or the story of the fighters right before the tournament. Each set of characters will get 1 or 2 episodes if they're lucky, and it's a pretty wide range from pretty accurate to genuinely enemy. So let's begin with Season 1, Episode 1. Immediately, things feel much more MK than in Rebirth. The Black Dragon are, exactly what they should be, a criminal cartel creating advanced illegal cybernetics and weaponry. In this timeline, they're working on cybernetics for the Lin Kuei Cyber Initiative, which makes sense because in the original timeline you never really knew how the Lin Kuei got access to this technology. It was just kind of assumed they were just smart enough to make it themselves, but this feels a little bit more reasonable. But Sonya has infiltrated their base, seemingly without permission from the Special Forces, and lets them know that this is the place they're looking for, and Kano is here. Speaking of Kano, I want to say, firstly, RIP to the actor who plays him, Darren Shalavi, but I'm not a huge fan of this depiction. He just doesn't have the gruffness and humorous element that Trevor Goddard and Josh Lawson brought to him. He tries, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Hey! Do not pester me or I will cut your hearts out like I did to that big Java ponder of yours.
Getting the transmission from Sonya, Jax and the Special Forces move out to breach the Black Dragon warehouse. Oh yeah, and this guy is Stryker. In the meantime, Sonya's already been captured, and we get confirmation that the backstory is intact and Kano did kill Sonya's partner. He also intercepted Sonya's transmission and knows the Special Forces is coming, so he ambushes them when they arrive at the now empty warehouse. They get into a kinda shittily shot shootout, and Jax goes after Kano so they can get into a much better hand-to-hand fight, which ends in an explosion that just so happens to loosen the chain holding Sonya to the ceiling, allowing her to free herself. And the episode ends there. Yeah, you're gonna notice that the length of these episodes and the points where they choose to end them are really weird. In episode 2, we pick up where we left off with Sonya making her way through the warehouse, shooting some bad guys along the way. At the same time, Kano and Jax are still fighting, and Jax ends up punching Kano so hard his eyeball pops out. You know, we've never had an actual explanation of how Kano lost his eye, if it was even an accident and he didn't just intentionally do it to himself. This is a goofy but serviceable reasoning for it. Sonya makes her way to Jax, and they're right about to have this great reunion, but a bomb bounces in and blows them both up. Sonya wakes up in the hospital and learns from Stryker that Kano got away and Jax lost both his arms. In the final scene of the episode, we see Kano get his iconic metal eye plate. Boy, I'm really excited for Jax and Kano to have their iconic features and abilities when they come back in the next season. Anyways, I'd say these first 2 episodes are decent. It's a serviceable setup for the Jax, Sonya, and Kano dynamic we know. Obviously, I wish these characters just already had their powers and we saw them use those instead, but for what it wants to be as an origin story, it's fun. Moving on to episode 3, this one is on Johnny Cage. And the first part of it is sort of documentary style, going over his backstory and career as a martial artist and action movie star. It's actually really fun. However, it does introduce a quality of this version of Johnny that I just hate: his anger and violence issues. Now listen, I have no doubts that the canon version of Johnny Cage has had issues with the law, but I was thinking more like public intoxication or fraud. Not going around picking fights and beating up random people. It's one of those things with Legacy, and this was a product of the time as well, where some part of every character or plot just has to be miserable or edgy, and you'll see this later in the episode. Next, we see some sort of proof of concept or advert for Johnny's new TV show, where he beats up some dudes who are pirating the show. Guys, it's bad. It's not well shot. The editing is so amateurish. I get it's supposed to be an exaggerated 2000s corny action movie, but god, it doesn't even feel like that. MK2's fake Johnny movie feels like that. This feels like something high schoolers would make. I couldn't even laugh at it, I was just cringing the whole time. Johnny's producers understandably roast him for this terrorist attack on cinema, and they send him away to make something better, which he attempts to do 3 weeks later. This one is even worse, cause why is there random effects and text everywhere? And the music. Oh lord, I can't play it, but the music is terrible. I genuinely think I could make a better trailer on my first try. The producers show mercy to the audience by cutting the trailer short and dropping Johnny from the TV deal. Johnny gets very upset about this, and when he learns that they want to do a show of a similar concept with some actress, he beats up one of the producers and the security. Yeah, I'm sorry, Johnny was a douche before the first tournament, but he wasn't a menace to society. Shang Tsung, appearing from thin air, then literally just stops the episode and interrupts the plot to try and recruit Johnny to the tournament. Sure, why not? The opening of this episode set up what could have been a really fun time. Hell, I would have loved a full documentary style episode for Johnny. But after that, it kinda goes downhill with the shitty shows and the goofiness of Johnny just beating up his producers. I think there was a more creative and less depressing way to show how washed and in a low place Johnny is. The next episode is told partly through animation, probably for budget reasons, and it tells the story of how Adenia lost the tournaments and got merged with Outworld. Some of it is also live action though, which, since we're getting into the more fantastical side of MK, can get really cheap looking. And also, this is the worst Baraka and Shao Kahn designs I have ever seen. Well, no, second worst Baraka design I've ever seen. Nothing beats Plastic Surgeon Baraka. We follow Sindel and Baby Katana as Tarkatans invade Jared's castle. A Jared decoy helps them through some tunnels to try and escape, but Baraka and Shao Kahn catch up to them. And it turns out the real Jared just up and abandoned his family. Damn, what an asshole. My goat would never. Anyways, the story from there goes pretty accurate. Shao Kahn takes Sindel as his wife, she doesn't really mess with him like that, and worrying Katana could grow to hate him by finding out the truth, he has Shang Tsung create Melina. Of course, Melina being half Tarkatan kinda freaks out Sindel, and she decides that's enough and she pieces out on life. I have to get creative with the wording. Katana and Melina grow up raised by Shao Kahn, with Melina's control over her Tarkatan side getting worse as she gets older, developing a lust for blood. And the episode ends there. The next episode starts with Shao Kahn having his daughters give each other life-altering CTE before sending them on a mission to eliminate every one of King Jared's decoys, with the last of them being the real one, who Melina kills, but not before he spills the beans about Katana actually being his daughter and not Shao Kahn's. The episode then ends with Shao Kahn announcing his intentions to attack Earthrealm next. Wow, that really did not have to be two separate episodes. Barely anything happened in part 2. On the bright side though, these episodes are pretty much one-to-one with the game's story. Other than Jared being killed by Katana, that was dumb. But it's nice to see this storyline play out on screen, as it's something we've only ever heard of and never seen before. But what holds it back are the aesthetics and budget. Obviously, it looking cheap is kinda outside the control of the filmmakers, but god, everything is so dark and most of the designs are terrible. But these two, still, are by far the best episodes out of really any of the MK Legacy seasons, narratively. There's one that is much more entertaining and badass that we'll get to later. Episode 6 is the worst episode in this season. What the hell is this? It starts out with Raiden in a straitjacket being psychologically surveyed in a mental hospital. What a way to start out, am I right? It cuts to 3 months later, where we see Raiden crash land in this mental institute, for some reason. Did he slip and fall out of the heavens or something? And he's found the next morning by this girl and the staff, and somehow the God of Thunder is overpowered by some random guys and taken in as a patient. Can they do that? If a homeless person just wandered in, could they just be like, yeah, you're committed now? I don't think that's a thing. To be fair though, Raiden does start kinda acting like a crazy person. What the hell was that? They keep Raiden there for multiple months and inject him with excessive amounts of ketamine. I'm not joking. He starts puking up this blue substance. What is that, from the ketamine? We cut back to the scene from the beginning of the episode, and Raiden tries to explain how he's the God of Thunder and Earth is in danger. And obviously he sounds cuckoo, so it doesn't really get him anywhere. Since nothing is fixing his delusions, the doctors start trying to lobotomize Raiden. Lobotomize the God of Thunder. I can't. Afterward, Raiden starts talking to the girl who found him originally, and they devise a plan to escape. Raiden tricks the guards into tasing him, you know, but he doesn't get far before getting shot with a ketamine gun and getting lobotomized again. Somehow this girl gets into the lobotomy room and stabs Raiden, making him disappear into an electric ball. Sure, why not? Raiden reappears in some alleyway and steals a guy's hat. Just to be a dick, I guess. This episode is one of the worst things I've ever seen from this franchise, and the whole time I was rewatching it, I was cackling. It's trying so hard to be grounded and serious, but it's so ridiculous and just out of character and out of pocket. It's so dumb, and I don't know what the writer of this was on when he made it. Oh, of course. Excessive amounts of ketamine. Alright, this is what you're here for, what everyone remembers from this first season, Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Well, mostly just Scorpion. It starts out with ominous narration introducing Hanzo, aka the Scorpion, with Hanzo looking panicked in the background, but it turns out he's just playing with his son, Jubei, not Satoshi. I think this came out before his family had official names. Hanzo agrees to train Jubei to become a samurai and the next general of the Shirai Ryu when he grows up. Oh yeah, notice how I said samurai and not ninja. Yeah, he's a samurai, not a ninja now. I kinda get it, but ninjas are cooler. Hanzo has dinner with his family, where it's apparent his wife does not approve of the violent lifestyle of her husband, and wishes for that not to be for her son as well, and I guess she got her wish. These helmet dudes then appear to tell Hanzo that the Shogun, whose arrival is important or something, has come early, so Hanzo gets fitted out and heads for the Shogun's castle. Now I haven't talked about music very much so far since it hasn't really been noteworthy, but I will say the music for the next sequence is very good. It kinda has all the Mortal Kombat music staples, electronic, Asian inspired, and cinematic. While heading to the castle, Hanzo finds the Shogun frozen solid, so you know what that means, my boy Bihan is here.
Bihan.
Or I guess, Bihan. I want to take a moment to talk designs, because I think both these looks for Sub and Scorp are good from the neck down. Scorpion's mask looks really weird and it sort of has an underbite, and Sub has this large fur collar that was probably supposed to emulate Deception, but just kind of disrupts the whole thing. But yeah, it turns out this was just a distraction to get Hanzo away from his village so the Lin Kuei could attack, and the episode leaves off there. In the next, it ain't Mortal Kombat without a Scorpion and Sub-Zero fight, so that's how we start off. And I'll admit, this is a pretty badass fight scene. Lots of cool moves, flips, and choreography. Sub uses his ice powers frequently too, and we get to get over here. In Japanese. Guess it's better than him just suddenly learning English. After beating Sub-Zero, Hanzo returns to his village, and you know how it is. Everyone's dead, including his wife and child. While grieving, Sub-Zero sneaks up from behind and finishes him. But it turns out this is not Bihan, or Bihan, it's Quan Chi, and he commands Hanzo to help fight for the Netherrealm in the Mortal Kombat tournament. What? And of course, I swear there's a line like this in every single MK movie or show. Hanzo says that he's no longer Hanzo, but Scorpion. Now these episodes I'll spend a little bit more time reviewing since they are pretty influential to the overall series. This depiction of Hanzo being present for the Shirai Ryu massacre, rather than being killed by the real Bihan prior and elsewhere, has returned in pretty much every other adaptation we've gotten, even the most accurate ones like Scorpion's Revenge. The opening scene of MK 2021 is basically these episodes combined into one sequence. I don't know if this is a good thing since a lot of people now just assume this is what's canon when Sub-Zero mythologies does exist and did happen. But it's still an interesting plot and probably more narratively and emotionally satisfying. And as far as quality goes, I think these episodes are pretty good. I have my gripes like Scorpion being a samurai and the designs, but there's nothing here horribly offensive. Thank God after I had to sit through that Raiden episode. One more episode of Season 1 and it may be the best, even though it has the least going on. Cyrax and Sector. It begins with the two, in their human form, being taken in for cyberization, with Cyrax of course having cuts and bruises from his retaliation. They first test the two's abilities as humans in a fight, with Kano being present, pre-Eyeball getting punched out of his skull, because remember the Black Dragon provided all these cybernetics. They beat their two jobbers, who end up being clankers, and they follow through with the cyberization process for Ketchup and Mustard. Can I call them that before they're cyborgs? They begin their transformation and their fits get applied, and now we have Cyrax and Red Cyrax. Yeah, their models being the same really irks me, but you know, I get it, they didn't want to make a new one. The Grandmaster wishes to see a demonstration, so they have Cyrax and Sector go up against Hydro. And this is one of the most badass fights we have ever seen in an MK anything, really. The CGI is actually pretty decent, all things considered, and they do so many creative things with the animations and the attacks all three of the Cyber Ninjas do, and top it off with a badass fatality. The episode ends there, so a short one, but very memorable, and probably their best one, even though it has the least story. Or maybe it's the best because it has the least story. But that does it for Season 1. On rewatch, it's not terrible. There are quite a few minor things that irk me, but don't matter too much, like design choices and minor plot details. That whole Raiden episode was horrendous. Overall, it's not really my thing, but I'm not super mad at it because these are all original stories, or stories based on events we haven't seen in the games, with them being backstories and setup, so it doesn't really feel too much like a butchering of the source material. And maybe with another season, they could bring all these characters together for a decent little MK1 adaptation. That's not what happened at all. Mortal Kombat Legacy Season 2, released in 2013, was meant to be the bigger follow-up to the first. More characters, a higher budget, and the tournament. Kill me. Episode 1 starts out in Macau, China, in some random bar with a drunk dude singing horribly. Definitely giving classic MK vibes there. Liu Kang is there drinking, cause what else do you do at a bar, and looking ominous. Some random guys enter and one of them starts singing, again, horribly, and Liu Kang does us a favor and cuts that shit out. The dude gets angry and starts a fight, so Liu channels his inner Bo Raicho and drunkenly beats up him and his gang. Well, beat up is an understatement, he's just straight up murdering these guys. He does eventually get overpowered and lets himself get punched in the face over and over, not sure what that's about, and Kung Lao comes in to save him with his hat with no blade. That's like literally the whole point. Kung Lao tries to help Liu Kang out with the tournament approaching, but Liu is just an edgy loser bum, and he punches Lao in the face. That's exactly how I want to see one of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters. Hell of a start for Season 2. In this exchange, we learn Liu left the Shaolin Temple 10 years ago to be with some girl, but when that didn't work out, the Shaolin and Kung Lao didn't really help him, but we'll unfortunately get more info about that later. Yeah, this episode is already the worst one I've seen. Worse than the Raiden episode. At least that one was funny, this is just miserable. This was during that era where goody two-shoes good guys were seen as lame and boring, so they wanted to make Liu Kang interesting by having him be a dick. Well, a little bit more than a dick, but let's get to episode 2. This episode begins with Liu Kang's backstory 10 years ago, where he's working at a restaurant with a girl that he's planning to marry. Robbers suddenly enter the restaurant and off Liu's girlfriend for like no reason, they had already taken the money. We cut back to the present, where we follow Kung Lao as he gets transported to the tournament island. There, Stryker, played by a different actor, and Johnny Cage, also played by a different actor who looks suspiciously like one of my high school teachers if he had hair. Sub-Zero then, what the fuck is that? And also Kenshi is here. Raiden shows up, who is now inexplicably Asian, and explains that they're all allies in the tournament representing Earthrealm. Hold on. Where's Jax? Where's Michael Jai White? Hell, where's Sonya? Where are the characters we spent the last season setting up? And why are the characters that are here basically completely different people? We then cut to the other side of the tournament where Melina, Kitana, that fucking thing, and Scorpion appear. And then we meet the GOAT himself, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa as Shang Tsung. This was an insane get for Legacy, and by far, even with the little screen time he has, the best part of this whole series. His design is even great too, minus the baldness. It gives him a golden snakeskin robe, and it's perfect for Shang Tsung, who kinda has that snake gimmick. But one more person shows up on the Outworld side, Liu Kang. Yeah, they done turned him evil. Not a revenant, not a zombie, but I can't be too mad because a second later Shang Tsung says,
"It has begun."
And now I'm hyped again. But yeah, nothing really happened in that episode. Episode 3 begins with the Earthrealmers grouped up around a campfire. Raiden delivers some exposition talking about where they are, how and why to win the tournament, and how each one of them has a special ability that they unlock once on the island. Is this Arcana? No, it can't be. Guys, it's too cringe. I'm... Sub-Zero then appears and freezes their campfire for no reason other than to ore farm and be a dick, and they get moving. We then cut to Kenshi's backstory. Come on guys, that's a good one. Cut, sword. Kenshi murders all the robbers and helps out the old man, who tells him about the Sword of Sento, a blade hidden away in a mountain by Shao Kahn, guarded by Ermac. Kenshi goes out with the mission of retrieving Sento in the mountains and finds a cave surrounded by dead people. Looks promising, Then the episode ends. Why? Why do these episodes cut off when they do? Barely anything happened. It was just people around a campfire, and then we saw an old man get saved. We pick up where we left off, and Kenshi is in the cave. He's about to take the sword, but Ermac... Oh, that's not Ermac. Oh, please don't tell me that's Ermac. We're not shown what happens in the cave, but Kenshi stumbles out with both eyes gone. Then we cut back to the present on the island, where Kenshi is wandering around on his own, and we see he has Sento. So I guess Ermac blinded him, and then just let him have the sword. I don't know. Kenshi finds himself at a big tree, where Ermac appears again, and they battle. And Kenshi unlocks his Arcana and uses it against Ermac. But Ermac shows him levels with the telekinesis and... vines? But Kenshi escapes and stabs Ermac in the heart, killing him. Good, that thing needed to be put down. And that's the end of that episode. At least this one has a more conclusive ending. But you could have just combined the last one into this one. They're so short, like... It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, what a terrible adaptation of Kenshi's backstory. Just a bunch of made up BS. I mean, it's fictional, so it's all made up BS. But come on, the original origin gave so much more to his character with his connection to the sword and being tricked by Shang Tsung. And the acting and designs are horrendous. Apparently the budget was bigger. It feels like it got cut in half, along with everybody's IQ. The next episode starts with a recap of Kitana and Melina's backstory, and then we meet up with the two in the present day, and they're arguing cause that's just what they do, before getting ready to leave for the tournament. On the island, the two are just wandering around some forest, and I kid you not, they make you rewatch the whole fight we just fucking saw last episode. Why? The sisters run into Johnny Cage, and then I kid you not again, the episode ends. Holy shit, I'm gonna punch something. This episode was 75% recap and stuff I've already fucking seen from this series and literally the last goddamn episode. I'm gonna go insane. I don't want more episode padding. I want a padded room. The next episode begins with Johnny's backstory, and he's been arrested for starting a fight, and he's sitting in jail where Raiden visits him, and Johnny reveals he refused Shang Tsung's offer he gave in the previous season. Well, at least he's not a complete and utter asshole. Then we go back to the island where Johnny's being attacked by Melina, but she has stormtrooper aim, so he hangs in there for a bit before getting pinned on a tree. Melina wants Kitana to finish him, even though she's in a much better position to do so. I don't know, stop asking questions about this slop. But Kitana just kinda decides in that moment she's done with Shao Kahn and fights Melina. Melina does get the upper hand, but Johnny comes in with the assist and a cringy one-liner. It's for my sunglasses, bitch! Allowing Kitana to slice off Melina's head, and the episode ends. The last season's Kitana and Melina episodes were the best narratively, so how do these ones fare? Not good. At all. There's no conflict or really any setup to Kitana switching sides. I get her doubt was kind of established in the last season, but this just feels so abrupt compared to things like MK9 where she had guidance and slowly figured out the truth. And I don't even like MK9's story. And Melina is just a complete waste. She seemed like she could be a pretty complex villain judging by that last season, but here all that potential is thrown out the window and she's just generic evil. But it doesn't stop there, because now we have to butcher the poster boys of the franchise in episode 7. It starts in feudal Japan, long before the Shirai Ryu massacre. Two little boys, one from the Shirai Ryu and one from the Lin Kuei, are playing together. I got you, Baihan! And they're still calling him Baihan. So yes, these are Bihan and Hanzo. In this timeline, they were childhood friends. Kuei shows up and tries to tell his brother something, but in classic Bihan fashion, he absolutely roasts the shit out of his sibling.
I came to tell you. You're distracting me.
Wait, why are they speaking English? Adult members of both clans suddenly appear, and it's clear the boys are in a lot of trouble as their clans are rivals. 20 years later, the two boys are now adults, and Hanzo is with his family. But when his son runs off, he is grabbed by Kuai Liang, who is upset that they're on Lin Kuei land. Yeah, Kuai Liang is a bad guy. But that's not all, folks, because it gets even better. Worse. Kuei attacks Hanzo and is killed for it. Hanzo then meets with Bihan, who basically don't give a fuck about his brother, and they decide to form a truce. Bihan, Brother of the Year award. But yes, Kuai Liang is evil, Bihan's the good guy. You can't make this up. This is obviously awful and horrible and terrible and horrendous, and I want it to end, but to look on the bright side, the actors playing Hanzo and Bihan are doing a marginally better job than everyone else in this shit stain of a series, so That's gotta count for something. This episode begins with Bi-Han finding out about the Shiraryu massacre, and he's about to just kill his own clan members, but an old guy appears from thin air and tells him, "There's more to this than meets the eye." What's with all these random old men? We cut back to the present where Scorpion is meditating, and we get another fucking flashback scene. Please make it stop. We go back to Bi-Han with the old man, who kinda just yaps a whole bunch and then shows Bi-Han the truth about what really happened with Quan Chi and Hanzo's resurrection. We then cut back to the present on the island where, oh god, I forgot about this abysmal design. Bi-Han and Scorpion fight. It's an alright action sequence, I just wish my boy Bi-Han was fitted out like Scorpion is. And yeah, we know the deal, Scorpion kills Bi-Han with his own fatality. And yeah, that's the end of the episode. At least this one had a cool fight scene, but I'm just numb at this point. Emotionless. This series has torn apart everything I love from this franchise. God help me. Alright, almost done. The 9th episode begins in some house where some dude shoots another dude, and Liu Kang walks in wearing a hood. I could barely follow what this was even meant to be. We then see Liu Kang at a restaurant, and thank you! Cary Tagawa is here to cook! Basically, Shang Tsung is trying to recruit Liu Kang to fight for Outworld against Earthrealm, and we learn Liu Kang is now an assassin for hire. Shang Tsung manages to convince Liu Kang by saying he could get revenge on Kung Lao, who he claims is responsible for the death of his fiancée. He also reveals he's a demigod. Okay. You know what, this is all like the worst writing the series has ever experienced, and if it was any other actor this would be the worst scene in MK history, but Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa is acting his ass off, so I don't care. And we're here. The last episode. It begins with Kung Lao training. That's all that happens, just a waste of a minute of my time. A bloody Liu Kang then appears after killing the murderers of his fiancée. Kung Lao is in horror of this cause peace is kind of the Shaolin's thing, so he tells Liu to leave and never return. We cut back to the island where Stryker, holy shit I forgot he even existed, is wandering around cause that's all you can do here. He runs into Johnny Cage and heals his wounds from the Melina fight, but Liu Kang is there and attacks. A one-armed Johnny fights Liu and obviously gets his ass kicked, but Stryker intervenes before he can finish the job. With his taser and not his gun. But Liu obviously beats him, and before he can kill Stryker, Kung Lao appears, very disappointed at his friend's betrayal. They yap a little bit and are about to fight, but then it ends. Yeah, they end the season on a cliffhanger. Hey, how did season 3 pan out? Oh. But that's it. That's Mortal Kombat Legacy Season 2. Is it good? No. No, it's the opposite of that. I personally think that, unless you want to count Rebirth, which I don't, this is the worst officially released Mortal Kombat media ever. Cause yeah, something like The Journey Begins is terrible and not well made, but this is terrible and not well made, while also butchering the storylines of our favorite characters with all the life and substance stripped away in exchange for a depressing atmosphere with depressing people. The acting is atrocious. I don't know how it's so much worse than season 1. The effects are terrible and the writing and dialogue is just unbelievably bad. The positives I give it are some good moments in the soundtrack, the fights aren't terrible, and obviously Cary Tagawa as Shang Tsung is the huge standout. Like, he's in a completely different show and just completely different league to every other piece of content in this season. But overall, what is the legacy of Mortal Kombat Legacy? A Season 3 was in production and even started filming, with Louis Tan as Kung Jin, by the way, the man behind everyone's favorite MK character, but the project got cancelled and never saw the light of day. Following that, Kevin Tancharoen would officially drop out of any involvement with a Mortal Kombat movie, and it'd be stuck in development hell for a few more years before we got the 2021 film. I think the lasting impact Legacy has had is proving that firstly, audiences do care for a live-action MK, and more importantly, they care for a live-action R-rated MK. This was our first taste of that, and it was very popular when it released, much more so than it is now, where people have dissected its flaws, as I have done today, now that we're not starving for MK media outside the games. Season 1 is not bad. It has some great casting, fights, and even some plot points that gave certain untapped storylines in the game some exposure, such as the fall of Edenia and the Shiraryu massacre, even if they weren't very faithful adaptations. Season 2, on the other hand, is just a complete disaster, whose lasting impact has been showing Cary Tagawa still has it as Shang Tsung, a pretty cool Scorpion design, and the abundance of evil Liu Kang we got for like 5 or 6 years following its release. But that'll do it for me today. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of Mortal Kombat Legacy. Subscribe and leave a like if you want, and that's wraps on this one, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.